So we've got the signal in place now, and I've glued down the first piece of Celotex, carved out a little bit just to see what it's going to look like. Smooth the inside. I'm going to cover that with a bit of black card so that the tunnel portal is dark. You just see the trains disappearing into it. So I'm going to let that dry now. We'll come back to it a little bit later. So I've attached the wing walls and cut them in to the retaining wall and added some extra bits just to tidy up the whole section. A little bit cosmetic work to do. I've run some trains round, make sure that everything's still in the right place, and yeah, it's looking pretty good. Happy with that. So we've carved the Celotex into a basic shape, and now I'm going to give it a covering of filler to give it a nice hard shell, so that it can be painted, and then we can move on to the next stage and go from there. So we're giving it a covering of filler. I'm going to wait for that to go off, give it a light sand, get it all nice and smooth, get the contours back, and then be looking at giving it a coat of brown paint. So I have to see if I've got any, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so after going to B&Q, we've picked up a pot of brown paint, which I got mixed up specially, and we're going to cover the filler on the polystyrene, on the Celotex, to give us our first layer of ground cover. So here we go. Hello and welcome back, and I've made a start putting the branch line or upper line loop into position, so we know where it's going to run, and it's going to cross over 50mm high over these tracks and then continue down the back on a viaduct before turning back in and above the fiddle yard. So that's it marked out. So next thing I've done is made a cardboard template so that I know where my Celotex foam is going to go. So I'll cut that out and then lay it on the board and get it all lined up. So we've cut out the Celotex from the template, made a few minor alterations, as you can see. Track fits just inside, so that will need risers and the board cut, but yep, the tunnel section for the bottom looks to be coming along nicely. and I'm happy with the amount of clearance we've got around the track to build the rest of this up. So we'll get this glued down, peel off that silver foil on the top, and carry on. I'm using Copydex glue to hold it down, and anything I can find to weight it down while the glue dries. So I'll check back with that once it's had a chance to go off, and hopefully all stuck. So I've allowed the glue to go off, so the Celotex is all glued down, and I've trimmed it down a little bit to make it more manageable from its 100mm. It's now around 60mm, I suppose. But as you can see, it's going to give me a nice little tunnel to hide these curves. I'll try and hide as many of the curves as I can. Unfortunately, there's going to be a few that won't be. But we'll come back to that. Okay, so I've made up some blocks, all rising 2mm at a time, which will take the branch line stroke top of the layout up to 50mm, and that's where it comes to. So all around there will be the right height, so I've got it up in quite a good space. So I'm going to glue these riser blocks into place, let them go off, and then we will come back and work out our track bed, which is going to be cut from 4mm ply. Right, now I've got my first two templates ready so that we can mark them out on the ply. I've gone with 5mm ply, so everything's going to be a little bit higher, but I haven't put the first strut upright in yet, so I can get that right so that it matches the rest of the baseboard that's already there. So next, what I'm going to do is cut round my templates, or mark my templates first, and then get them cut out. Offer them up, hopefully. They'll sit on the supports pretty much where they need to be. Okay, so I've got the two sections marked out. main curve, and then the curve into the straight, which then goes back into another curve to bring it over the top of the lower tracks before entering the viaduct section that's going to get built. Okay, so I've cut out the first two templates and they are now fixed in place. A little bit trimming to get them in the right area. Out of the way. It's going to be another one or two templates to go around that section. See if we can get it in one hit. And then we've got to go girder bridge over the top. Ooh, girder bridge over the top of the lower tracks, and then a viaduct down to there. And then just after that second screw, or actually just in between the screw, just here, is the other tunnel mouth, which leads off into the fiddle yard. As we come round past all the mess and into the two fiddle yards. So obviously I'd drawn the track out previously and worked out roughly where it was going to go. Now it's going to be flexible track, so I've got a little bit of wiggle room. I'm trying to do this with one hand. It's going to be centered, hopefully, in the middle of here. It comes round and follows, single track, leading up to the top section. So obviously a bi-directional line. That's going to make a little bit of operational interest, hopefully, as trains go up and down it. Some nice intricate signalling to go along with it, which is something I'm looking forward to. And yeah, so the next will be a base coat of paint for this section, and then the cork, and then a base coat of paint on the cork, and then I will lay a bit of flexible track out, see where it comes, and yeah, we'll go from there. This evening I've added a coat of paint, grey, I believe it's dinner jacket, to the plywood track bed, and then once that's allowed to dry I'll be adding the cork. The cork will have a coat of paint as well, and then we can put some track down and bend it into shape, see how it looks. Welcome back, and as you can see we've got the cork going on now. This is all dried, so now we're going to give that a coat of paint just to tidy it up, and then offer up some track, see how it looks. Hopefully soon be able to get this last piece fixed up there over the next few days, week or so, and then I think landscaping along this side will start coming along quite quickly, because it'll be a nice area that will be good for running shots once we get going. So on with some paint. that's the cork painted, so I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to offer up some flexible track and see how far one length of it will go, and then we will move on from there. Work out where I've got to put a dropper for the first of the high level power supplies. But yeah, I like how it's going. I think it's going to look really good when it's done. So yeah, see what happens. Welcome back, and as you can see, the cork has been painted and has now dried. So now what we're going to do is offer up a piece of flexible track, see how far round we can get, and work out where we're going to need to cut it to join it to the next section. Right, so I have fixed a length of flexible track in place. I've followed the shape that I've produced with the cork to make the curve, and it's worked out pretty much spot on. Where the track straightens for a section is where I've got to join, so that's going to make joining the next bit of flexible track to it much easier. So happy with that. So the next thing to do is work out a point to put some dropper wires in for this piece of track, and get them marks drilled, hopefully soldered. Okay, so I've drilled a hole either side, and this time, because I've got some wire left over which has already been twisted, I fed it up from the underside, which took a little bit of time, but I got there. So that's now ready to be soldered. I've got to find an extension lead so I can get the soldering iron across here. But as you probably saw earlier in the video, I have stuck down a couple of pieces of offcut of Celotex to start bulking out where some of the hills and the landscape are going to go for this small section. So yep, I'm thinking that it's going to come together quite nicely, and it's going to look pretty good once it's done. Right, so further on in the week, and I've made a start putting a bit of landform down, some Celotex sections cut in, and then I've sculpted them to make a embankment going down to the lower section, and it's just had a coat of filler, so I'm going to let that go off, harden, and then I'll go over it and give it a light sand, and then it'll get a base coat of brown emulsion, and then we'll go from there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.